This morning, our thoughts will focus on two specific geographical locations, Jerusalem and Galilee. And we begin this morning with a determination to make it to Jerusalem. When the days were approaching for his ascension, Jesus, was determined to go to Jerusalem. And he sent messengers on ahead of him, and they went and entered a village of the Samaritans to make arrangements for him. But they did not receive him because he was traveling toward Jerusalem. Jesus was determined to get to Jerusalem. Why? Why was he so determined to make it to this city? He knew what would happen there. He knew the prophecies. He knew Isaiah 53. He knew Psalm 22. He knew Zechariah 13. He knew what awaited him in Jerusalem, and it wasn't good. Why did he still go? Why was he determined to get there? Listen to what Jesus tells the apostles about Jerusalem. As Jesus was about to go up to this city, he took the 12 disciples aside by themselves, and on the way he said to them, "Behold, we are going up to Jerusalem, and the Son of Man will be delivered to the chief priests and scribes, and they will condemn him to death, and will hand him over to the Gentiles to mock and scourge and crucify him, and on the third day he will be raised up." Jesus knew. He tells the apostles, play by play, what would happen when he made it to this city. But still yet he was determined to get there. In Luke 13, he says, "Nevertheless, I must journey on today and tomorrow and the next day. Every day I am moving towards a destination. Every day I am moving towards Jerusalem. For it cannot be that a prophet would perish outside of Jerusalem." Jesus knew that when he made it to this city, he was going to die. We get that, right? That's what he tells the apostles. That's why they try to prevent him from going there. Jesus knew exactly what would happen to him when he made it to this city. Still yet, he was determined to get there. Why? Why was Jesus so determined to make it to Jerusalem? Well, he traveled there for you, for me. That's why he went to this city. He was determined to get there because he knew what he would accomplish for us. This is the most important trip a person has ever taken. Think about important trips that you've made in your life, places you've gone, places you've wanted to go. There's certain trips that are pretty important. This is the most important trip any person has ever taken. Without this journey to Jerusalem, we would be lost. We would not know salvation. We would not have a pathway out of this life. We would not have an opportunity to go to heaven. Jesus went to Jerusalem for you, for me. Have you ever had a bad day? Maybe we think, days? What about a week? What about a month? What about a year? We've had bad stretches in our lives. All of us, we've experienced bad days. Have you ever had one of those days that you didn't think would ever end? I'm sure you've heard this before about life. Years go by fast, but some days they seem like they'll never end. Jesus knows what it's like to have a bad day. Everything that Jesus endured on the day that he died, he did that for us. And everything that he went through in a specific place, a specific destination. It all took place in Jerusalem, and still he was determined to go there. He went there to be betrayed. He went there to be denied. He went there to be abandoned by his closest friends. He went there to have his own people cry out, "Crucify him." He went there knowing that people would mock him and ridicule him and spit on him. He went there knowing he would be scourged over and over and over again. He went to this city knowing that a crown of thorns would be pressed into his skull. When he got there and everything begins to unfold, it's not like Jesus was taken off guard. When he was arrested, he knew exactly what was going to happen, what was going to take place. All of this, Jesus knew he would go through it. He went to Jerusalem knowing his hands and his feet would be nailed to that awful cross. He went there to die. He went there for you. You were the motivation. You are why Jesus was so determined back in Luke 9 to go to Jerusalem. You were the reason why day after day after day he tells his apostles, we're going towards Jerusalem. But we know that his death was not the end. We know that the story of Jesus, it did not end on that cruel cross. He also went to Jerusalem to resurrect, to bring us victory over sin, victory over death. And the victory that we have, it's not because Jesus died. People die every day. Back in the first century, people were crucified seemingly daily. The reason we have victory over sin, victory over death, the reason we have the opportunity to go to heaven is because Jesus conquered death. Because he resurrected back to life. So when he traveled to Jerusalem, it was not only to be persecuted, to go through all of this torture, to die. He went there knowing he would resurrect. The gospel story, it's incomplete without the resurrection. It's insufficient without the resurrection. Let's just get to the bottom line. The gospel story, it's insignificant without the resurrection. The resurrection changes everything. Jesus, he came to earth to die. He also came to conquer death, to resurrect. Everything leading up to his death, it was focused on one city, one specific destination, the city of Jerusalem. After his resurrection, the focus shifts to another place, another destination, north of Jerusalem, a place that Jesus was well familiar with. We move from Jerusalem to Galilee. Why Galilee? We've asked that same question about the city of Jerusalem. Why Jerusalem? Well, he went there to die for us. But why Galilee? Why was Galilee the focus after the resurrection? In Mark chapter 14, Jesus says to them, you will all fall away. Imagine the apostles when they hear Jesus tell them this. They had been with Jesus for an extended period of time. They had devoted their lives to him, heard him teach, watched him perform miracles. Their life, it was intertwined with Jesus. Their life, it was meshed together with this one person. To imagine life without Christ, to try to picture their existence without Jesus, that would be impossible for them at this point. In their minds, they were all in. In their minds, they would be committed to Jesus no matter what he would face, no matter what he would go through. They didn't want him to go to Jerusalem because Jesus had talked about the death that he would suffer, but they still went with him because they thought, we'll go anywhere with you. Jesus, wherever you go, we will go. And so when Jesus says to them, you'll all fall away, imagine what they thought. No, we won't. What are you talking about? We're not going to fall away. You will all fall away. Because it is written, I will strike down the shepherd, and the sheep will be scattered. You see, Jesus, he not only knew the prophecies about himself, he also knew the prophecies about them, about the followers. But then Jesus turns past what would take place there. Jesus' mind, it goes to the after. After I die, I'm going to come back. And after I have been raised, I will go ahead of you to Galilee. Galilee. Why Galilee? Very early on the first day of the week, they came to the tomb when the sun had risen. They were saying to one another, "Who will roll away the stone for us from the entrance of the tomb?" Looking up, they saw that the stone had been rolled away, although it was extremely large. Entering the tomb, they saw a young man sitting at the right, wearing a white robe, and they were amazed. And he said to them, "Do not be amazed. You are looking for Jesus the Nazarene, who has been crucified. He has risen. He's not here. Behold, here is the place where they laid him. But go, tell his disciples and Peter, he is going ahead of you to Galilee. There you will see him, just as he told you." This is where he told them. Back in Mark 14, 27 and 28, he tells them, "After I have been raised, after I have conquered death, after I am resurrected, I will go ahead of you to Galilee." And what does the angel say right here in Mark chapter 16? He's not here anymore. He's conquered death. He's gone to Galilee, just as he told you. So go tell the apostles, go tell Peter that he's on his way to Galilee, just as he told you. Why Galilee? Well, this is where everything began. If you go back to the beginning of John's gospel, it's an amazing chapter, chapter 1 of John. We see Jesus launching his ministry, and we see miracles begin to take place, even here with Nathanael. And all of this is happening in Galilee. Philip, after he discovers that Jesus is the Messiah, that he's the Christ, he goes and he finds Nathanael. He says to him, "We have found him of whom Moses in the law and also the prophets wrote, Jesus of Nazareth." You know where Nazareth is at? Galilee. Nathanael said to him, "Can anything good come out of Nazareth?" Jesus launched his public ministry, and you know where he launched it? He didn't launch it in Jerusalem. He launched it right here in Galilee. It's also where Jesus came from. This was home. We know that he was born in Bethlehem. His family traveled to Egypt to secure his safety when he was a child. But Galilee was home. This was home for Jesus. This was his home base. This is where he would be comfortable. And you think about what Jesus did here in Galilee. Just try to picture in your mind what a normal day would look like for Jesus. We know what a normal day looks like for us. We know what we'll encounter on most days, what our life will look like, when we'll get up, we'll go to work, we'll do whatever we do if we're retired, enjoy life, I hope, because I want to be retired one day. But we have a schedule. We have a routine. We know what a normal day pretty much looks like for us. What did a normal day look like for Jesus during his ministry? Well, this right here, this is it. Matthew 4:23. This is the best summation of what Jesus' life looked like day by day. And notice where it was centered. Jesus was going throughout all Galilee. This was home base. This is where he was involved with the people, ministering on a day-by-day basis. He went other places, but this was the target. He taught in the synagogues in Galilee. He proclaimed the gospel of the kingdom in Galilee. He healed every kind of disease and sickness among the people in Galilee. This is what a day looked like for Jesus. He taught. He proclaimed the gospel. He healed people who were hurting, who were suffering, who were struggling with life. It's what Jesus did every day. His life was about people right here in Galilee. He ministered to the crowds, as we see in Matthew 5 through 7. He felt compassion for the crowds, as we see in Matthew chapter 9. And often within these crowds, Jesus would call out individuals. He would minister to individuals. the woman at the well in John 4, the woman caught in adultery in John 11, the centurion in Matthew 8, Zacchaeus in Luke 19. Jesus ministered to people, and much of it was centered right here in Galilee. But not only was this home for Jesus, it was also home for the apostles. Jesus calls Peter, Andrew, James, and John to follow him in Matthew 4. They were called out of Galilee. Jesus calls Matthew in Matthew 9 to be his apostle, called out of Galilee. Jesus called his apostles out of their ordinary daily lives in Galilee to be his apostles. Think about all of the fishermen that he called who fished at the Sea of Galilee. Now, Galilee would not be the expected destination of many. You look here in Acts chapter 2. This is leading up to this great sermon that Peter's about to preach. There were Jews living in Jerusalem, devout men from every nation under heaven. And when this sound occurred, the crowd came together and were bewildered, because each one of them was hearing them speak in his own language, and they were amazed and astonished, saying, "Why are not all these who are speaking Galileans?" Why, yes, they were. The apostles, they were Galileans. The triumphal entry was into Jerusalem. So when Jesus was determined to go into Jerusalem, the regathering of the apostles with Jesus, that was in Galilee. Now, what would the expectation be? What would people expect of this man who just conquered death? We know everything that happened in Jerusalem. We just looked at it. We see Jesus suffering in such a tremendous way. We know that Jesus dies a horrible death on the cross, and now he's alive again. What would people expect Jesus to do? Oh, it's time for payback. It's time for some vengeance. Many expected Jesus to restore the city of Jerusalem. This is where it would start. This is where the military operation would launch. This is where Pilate is about to get payback. This is where Rome is going to come to its quick end. One might have thought that Jesus would go straight to the palace after resurrecting, that he would go straight to the seat of Roman power and tell Pilate that he had made a big mistake. That's what people would expect. Jesus, he resurrects back to life. He's killed in Jerusalem. Well, he's going to go right back into the city, and he's going to set things straight. Galilee? Why would he go back to Galilee? Nobody special lived there. Nobody except the followers of Jesus. Now be sure you get this. The resurrected Christ, he comes back to and appears before the very same ragtag group of failures who so disappointed him, misunderstood him, forsook him, and fled into the darkness. He returns to the deserters and the deniers. This is what is so significant about this. He went back to Galilee for us. Not just Peter, not just James and John, not just the rest of the 12. He came back there for us. It would have been tremendous news. It would have been earth-shattering news that Christ had died and that he had resurrected. But the even greater news is this: he did that for us, for you, for me. When Jesus died for Peter, he died for me. When Jesus died for John, he died for you. When Jesus died for all of the apostles who deserted him, he died for us. Because that's who I am. That's who we are. We are the deserters. We are the deniers. We are the betrayers. We are the sinners. We are the ones who have turned our backs on Jesus, and still yet he went to Jerusalem to die for us. And when he gathers us all back together after the resurrection, it's right back in the place where all of this started, where it all began. Paul so beautifully expresses this thought in 2 Corinthians chapter 5. God made Jesus, who knew no sin, to be sin on our behalf. My behalf. That's why Jesus went to Jerusalem, and that's why he tells the apostles, after I resurrect, I'm going to go ahead of you to Galilee. That's where you're going to find me. That's where we're going to meet up. And he makes all of these appearances. These appearances to his followers, they provide overwhelming evidence of his resurrection. He appeared to Peter, the one who denied knowing him. I don't know the man. I don't know who he is. Don't lump me in with him. He appeared to that guy. He appeared to the 12, the ones who ran away when it got a little tough. He appeared to Paul, the one who was trying to destroy his work. He appeared to us because this is who we are. Sinners. Just like Peter, just like the 12, just like Paul. We're all the same, aren't we? Sinners. And so now this is our only claim, our only hope. Jesus was resurrected. And when he resurrected, he went back to Galilee. He came back to us. Our Savior was unwilling to let the story of us and God end in death, because that's the price of sin, death. The story of Jesus did not end on a cross in Jerusalem. The risen Jesus shows up among us while we're back at work, back in Galilee. The risen Jesus shows up among us to quench our doubts. God is the shepherd who doesn't just sit back and wait for the lost sheep to wander back home. God leaves heaven. He reaches down into the mire, reaches down into the pig pen, and he pulls out the prodigal that he may be at home with his Father once again. He came back to the very ones who had forsaken, betrayed, and crucified him. He came back to us, for us. In this fact, it changes everything. We give up, we give in, we despair only to be surprised to find him near to us again. It had to be a shock to Peter and everybody else when Jesus came back for them. In the Bible, it gets dark. In Jesus, he's sent by his Father down here to earth to a very dark place. Then on the day our Savior died, it gets very, very dark. But then Jesus shows back up. He comes back. The risen Savior comes back again and again to the very ones who so betray and disappoint him. He comes back for us. He seeks us. He finds us. He teaches us. He saves us. He holds us. He commissions us to do his work. He reminds us that he can restore what we think is lost and dead. So go. Tell the good news. The risen Jesus, he's alive. And he's come back to us. And what we think is lost, what we think is dead, Jesus can restore. That's the power of the resurrection. And you may look at your life this morning and you think, well, I'm lost. You may look at your life right now and you think, I'm not where I need to be. The power of the resurrection, the power of your Savior, it can change you. Promise you, it can change you. If If you have a need, we invite you to come as we stand and sing together.